Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the tropes and trends of the horror genre. This is episode 163, where we are talking about hotels, motels, and anything that you can rent to put down your sleepy head for the night. This is Mike Campbell, and I'm joined by
Eric Lee
and
Liz Williams.
all right. So here is the big question: have you ever stayed in a murder hotel room and or a haunted hotel?
Liz first, because I have.
Oh.
I have not, but I've been really wanting to stay here. We have the Myrtles Plantation, which is like one of the most haunted hotels, and one day I'm going to stay it.
Ooh.
But I don't. Not that I am aware of. Have I stayed in a murder hotel?
Yep.
Ooh.
But they might not tell me that. I
We
don't know.
went. We a number of years ago, we were up in Port Townsend. There's a very famous up on the Washington Peninsula. There's a very, very famous hotel up there that is allegedly haunted, and we were going to stay in there. But Hank, my youngest son, he was about 4 at the time, and we kept talking up the fact that, oh, it's haunted.
Oh, why do
It's-
that to a
Oh
kid?
my goodness!
It's a haunted. There's gonna be and he was just like, no.
You did that to yourself. Mike.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we kind of screwed up there majorly, but yeah.
Hank is the smart one.
Nonetheless, we did not stay at the haunted hotel, but we did walk through the hotel, and it was a I'll say this: it was a very strange layout, very skinny halls that were very tall, which had a really off-putting architectural vibe.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the closest I've been to a haunted hotel.
Yeah.
What about you, Eric?
I wouldn't say haunted,
Okay.
but I've. What is this? What are the skeeviest places that
Oh.
I've stayed?
I've stayed in
82nd
Brooks
Avenue.
There was a road. I was on my road trip across the country back in 1991,
Uh-huh.
and I stayed at a roadside motel in Mississippi,
Woo!
where
Grossest hotel I stayed. I was also in Mississippi.
it was. We checked in, and I am. As my evening's activity, I amassed a ball of lint from the bed sheets the size of a softball.
Ooh.
And then
That's not lint. That's, I think,
Yeah.
pubic
know.
hair.
Oh, gross.
and
Hopefully our picks will be nicer.
and my travel companion Mike McDaniel. Hey Mike, if you're listening, got attacked by fire ants out in the parking lot. It's like, yeah, that was an experience.
But no one was murdered.
Nobody was murdered, at least
And-
not that I was aware of. We
And
mentioned-
no ghosts, as far as you can
no
tell.
ghosts. The other thing that I'm almost 100% sure there have been murders there. I stayed at the Travel Lodge in Las Vegas, just north of the Strip, just past the Stratosphere Tower.
Sure.
Oh,
It had such a bad reputation that the cab driver wouldn't take us to the front door.
What?
And he goes, I'm
In
letting
Las
you,
Vegas?
I'm letting you off here. And it's like,
Wow.
dude, that's like, we have to cross the parking lot. It's like, I'm not going any further. It's like,
Wow.
oh shit. And it's like, but there was the only place, because we had arrived for a wedding, my buddy and I, but we were early because
Okay.
he worked for Horizon Air.
Yeah.
And so we flew sort of. He goes, "Hey, we can catch our flight," and it's like, but our hotels weren't. We were gonna stay at the Tropicana, not a whole lot better.
Yeah.
But the Trop at least is safe.
Less murders.
Well, a whole lot less murders.
They were cleaning the blood out of
Yeah, no, this was-
the bathtub.
Oh God, it's like there were all kinds of weird, kind of bleached out areas
Right.
in this hotel. It's like I'm sure there were like mob hits in this in this thing. And
Did you
no
take
doubt there were
Did you
drugs.
take a black light into
Oh
your
God, no,
room?
hell no! You don't want to do that to yourself
Don't
because it's
do
like
that.
otherwise I'm sleeping out on this.
Ignorance is bliss.
I'd be joining the large vagrant population in Las Vegas, sleeping in the Strip outside of a hotel with my luggage.
Oh, yeah,
I wasn't
yeah.
gonna do that, but that was totally sketchy.
Okay.
That one.
So I'm hearing a lot less paranormal, more
murder house,
more
motel.
deviant.
More murder.
And we will get to deviant hotels here
plenty
in
of
a
them.
little bit. This is what I will say about the hotel motel horror genre. I love it.
Mhm.
Love it. Super fun. And it's for all the reasons you just outlined. You don't know what you're going to get. There's always something that's maybe a little amiss, more and more as you get into Airbnbs and other types of rentals, there's always something that just doesn't quite add up. Maybe there's a locked door. Maybe there's a cabinet that's locked. Maybe there's a door that goes nowhere. There's lots of weird stuff going on in the world of hotel motel and especially rentals these days. And so that's why it's so fun, because it preys on that reptilian part of your brain that's like always on edge when you get into a rental.
Well, you're on the road.
Right.
You're not. You're beyond the comfort of the familiar.
Yep. That's right.
It's a home away from home.
That's right.
And granted, Liz, the biggest traveler out of the three of us.
Yeah.
Is there a minimum standard of hotel that you were willing to go through?
Yes.
Yeah, because you do not want to stay at that Mississippi roadside motel that I was at. Because
I only stayed at one when we were evacuating for Hurricane Katrina, and we were not able to go to Houston, where we had booked a hotel, like a nice old Marriott. Had to get on the wrong side of the counterflow. Ended up in Indianola, Mississippi it was horrible, but we had been driving for probably 12 hours, and we slept in our clothes, like on top of other clothes that we had packed, and got out of there real fast.
Do you remember the name of that hotel?
I do not.
Okay.
But it was Indianola, Mississippi, the birthplace of B.B. King.
I was in Vicksburg.
My hotels, even though they're in horror movies, are all nicer than that one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, good. But it's not to say that you can't find actually a very nice hotel that is also on famed horror movies. The Ahwahnee Hotel.
Oh.
And Timberline Lodge.
I thought you were going to say nice hotels in Mississippi.
No.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are some great hotels in Mississippi. Yeah. I didn't stay at one because I was 22 years old and on a limited funds.
Mississippi Tourism Council, if you are listening, we would love to have you as a sponsor of the podcast.
That's right.
Jesus.
But I think if you think of The Shining, right?
True.
That's that is a wondrous old haunted hotel.
It's you get a twofer.
Yeah. And what was Liz, do you remember the hotel in New Orleans that hosted the first Overlook that was in New Orleans that's famously haunted?
Oh my God, since you put me on the spot.
It's great.
It's the Bourbon Orleans.
Yeah,
is what it is.
That's a cool hotel.
Yeah.
But they
haunted.
also haunted hotel. So
all
even
right,
if you're setting your standards high, doesn't mean you're out of the woods.
That's right. All right, let's get into it. Who's going first?
I'll go.
All right, Liz, what do you got?
I've got a brand new 2023 film. And
what?
Infinity Pool.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Because Infinity Pool is set at a luxury resort in a imaginary country, but this luxury resort is surrounded by like barbed wire and has armed guards because you do not want to venture out to be with the locals. So I spoke a little bit about Infinity Pool on episode 3 of Spooky Time, but this is directed by Brandon Cronenberg, son of David, stars Alexander Skarsgård, Mia Goth, and Cleopatra Coleman. And Alexander Skarsgård plays a writer who goes on vacation with his wife, and they meet another couple, and they go outside of the snow with the couple. They end up all getting drunk, driving back, and
always
accidentally hitting a local. And then in my review, I said they pull in, I know what you did last summer, because they are not going to go to the police. Always, no, that's a bad idea. That is a trope of the horror movie genre.
Yep.
So, of course, the police come to him and say, in our country, we have zero tolerance for crime, so you murdered someone, so we're going to execute you. The person who you murdered, his eldest son can execute you, and if you don't have an eldest son, like the government will do it for him. But if you are wealthy enough, you can just pay us to make a clone of you, and then we'll execute the clone. So,
those
of course,
Cronenbergs.
even though he's those Cronenbergs, even though he's not wealthy, his wife is. So he hits the ATM, gets his clone, watches it get murdered, and then what I said in my review is all stakes now are gone. So once you know that you can just commit crimes, there's no more stakes.
Unless you're the clone.
Unless you're the clone. And they're trying to say that like the clone really is you and feels everything, but if it's not It's not you. Like, what do you care? So there's no stakes. And then so now they're going to commit crimes, but they just never commit big crimes. It's just like I said, light B&A, a little breaking and entering. More orgies and boredom, like and taking drugs. Which like, can't you just do that on vacation anyway?
Right.
I
Do you
don't know.
need
So
it?
that's where that movie
Is there
kind of.
within this premise, like if you end up trying to do something like I'm going to do something grand, like I'm going to try and assassinate Vladimir Putin, and his body men, put a bullet in your head.
Then you'd really be dead.
Then
though.
you'd really be dead. What happens to the
Yeah.
clone? Does the clone?
The clone was already dead. You're only having the clone made to be executed.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Clone
you can't,
doesn't
Yeah,
hang
so you
out.
can't just have a backup
You
like
can't,
a,
like,
like,
get
a,
an
like a hard
extra
drive
clone.
kind of a thing.
I mean, maybe you could, but
It's an infinity pool, not an infinity loop.
yeah. So it was good. It is set at a resort, so that counts. It's worth
Where
seeing.
do you know where it was actually shot at? Even though it's a
Actually,
fictitious
I'm gonna
island.
say Croatia
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
in
like-
like real life.
yeah, yeah.
because like if you were gonna
Like
have,
Because it's a
Dubrovnik.
beachside resort.
Like Dubrovnik or something.
yeah,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
split.
beachside resort.
Yeah, I've heard great
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
about that. All right.
So vacation. It's a hotel, a luxury hotel, but for me, it didn't meet the hype machine that was coming out of Sundance. That this was like depraved and crazy and so disturbing. No, it wasn't.
It was
maybe
interesting, but
disturbing
just
for
not.
people who can stay at a White Lotus level resort. Probably think this is very disturbing. I'm kind of a
Yeah, right,
middle
that's-
tier. Can't afford the Four
yeah,
Seasons.
get what you
So,
got coming
nah.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're working off your what is it?
I'm on
your Hilton
points,
points.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my
I don't
first
pay
one
cash.
Yeah.
takes us to the Oregon coast.
Ooh,
So this
I like
is,
it. I
this
like it.
is handily enough the rental.
Oh, yeah.
So this is
Love,
directed by
love.
Dave Franco, starring Dan Stevens, Allison Brie, Sheila Vand, and Jeremy Allen White.
Mhm.
Horror movie trope 101: always check your rental rooms for peeping tom cameras.
Yeah.
The rental is a tightly packaged thriller of two couples who head to the Oregon coast, and I think is it Bandon?
I thought it was like Newport.
No, it's not that far up. It's got because it's on a cliff. There's no.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, only Oregonians would know this kind of thing. But these are some tightly wound professionals, two brothers, and Charlie and Josh, who travel with their significant others. I think one's a wife and a girlfriend, Michelle and Mina, and they are a bunch of overly stressed, overworked people who need to get a break. So they go to as a lot of people will do, go to the Oregon coast. It's very relaxing. But they should be able to blow off some steam, but they make some bad decisions.
It was shot at 88515 Pacific Surf Lane, Bandon, Oregon.
Chalk one up for Eric.
Wow.
Right at the California
You can
border.
actually rent this rental house.
Nice. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful house.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole trip gets off to a bit of a rocky start when they suspect that the host might be a racist, because Mina is Middle Eastern and she's
Right.
picking up vibes that they wouldn't rent to her, but they would rent to her boyfriend. And then he says some off-putting comments when they arrive, and so he's kind of they're all a bunch of nervous people anyways, and so they're having a hard time enjoying they need to relax, and so
Right.
bad choice number one, let's do some ecstasy
And get really drunk.
get really drunk. Bad idea number two, don't have an affair with your brother's significant
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
when they're there. I mean, it's like, this is just horrible. And but it's like maybe it's the drugs talk, and
Right.
but it's also kind of there's some history, right?
Mhm.
So that was, but of course everything ended up being on camera.
Right.
There were cameras hidden all over this house.
Right.
Hopefully not at the real rental.
Right. Yeah.
You check it out. It's like you have to
yeah,
check,
I don't
check,
know.
check for cameras in the shower. Kind of gross. But it is a beautiful lodge and with a beautiful hot tub and a beautiful ocean view. Not bad unless you start to do stupid shit. So they do stupid shit, and I think this is one of the things that separates this, like the protagonist. Sometimes, like in your Friday the 13th movies, the protagonists who are dominoes to get mulched typically are intellectually stupid. They make just boneheaded decisions that defy logic. These people are making emotionally stupid moves.
Right.
That they're intellectually smart people who can actually process things properly unless their emotions get in the way, and they just kind of this is it.
And you
floods all over
I
the
kind of
place.
like disliked all of them too.
Yeah.
Which was
not
great
like
because
them.
that's sort of that rule of the psychology of horror where it's
Go get them.
yeah
Yeah,
I can't
because-
come up.
yeah. yeah so
because
you get your
they're-
comeuppance because you're just like, God, these people are just a-holes.
But there's a death in the middle of the movie that all of a
Uh-huh.
sudden, this was, I think Liz mentioned this. It's like calling the cops is a trope within the vacation rental horror genre.
100%.
It happens, I think, in all three of the movies that I'm going to represent.
Cops get called.
Cops get called, and but they debate whether to call the cops. In this case, they say no, don't call the cops because if you call
Right.
the cops, then they're gonna show
We
you
have
and me
drugs, yeah.
having sex, and we can't let
Right.
our spouses know about this because then that's worse.
Right.
But someone whoever was watching is also a homicidal maniac.
Yep.
And starts closing in for the kill, and boy does it ratchet up the tension. You may not
Yes.
like these characters, but you fear for these characters because
Oh,
this,
yeah,
this
100%.
is one mean ass serial
Right.
killer. It's not. It's also sort of the physicality of it. I think it
Yeah.
was just. And
But
and
it
the
also,
cleverness.
I think the thing that's incredible about this film, and I've never seen this done before quite like this, the real stinger for me
Mhm.
doesn't take place in the film. It's
It's in the credits.
in the end credits,
It's in
Yeah.
the end credits.
best end
Yeah.
credits ever.
So stick around for the
amazing.
end credits because that's where the punchline is. That's where
Yep.
the climax is. And I'm still so shocked they have not gone back and done a rental part 2 because it could easily happen.
Yeah, because killer's not dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Rental's
Anyways,
All right.
the
very
rental,
good.
yeah, totally super tense movie. Go check it out.
All right.
Yes.
My first film is a film from 2007 called Vacancy, directed by Nimrod
Collision.
Antal. This, of course,
Oh,
stars
I don't
Kate
know this one.
Beckinsale, Luke Wilson,
Mhm.
not Owen, Luke, and I can't remember what the third brother's name is, but definitely
Only
not
two to
him.
count.
Yeah, there's only two that count. Luke and Owen.
Sorry, other brother.
Sorry, other brother.
You're the,
And I
you're
think
the-
he's-
Might as well be a bald.
I
you're,
think
the, you're the Billy Baldwin.
I think
Sorry.
he's the older brother. I think is, or the other brother. I think is the oldest brother too. And then it also stars Frank Whaley. This is a
who's really creepy.
married couple who gets stranded at an isolated motel, finds out that the hidden cameras in their room, also like the rental, but very differently than the rental, these people that are filming them film them as a part of an ongoing snuff film series. It is, when I was watching this, I had vibes. I had very, very similar vibes to the film from the year before last, Boomper Cleef,
Yes.
in that, but it's a little different. It's kind of like the flip side of Boomper Cleef in that there's tension between Kate Beckinsale and Luke Wilson. But their tension is the fact that they're basically on the verge of a divorce,
Yep.
and that he's not. That neither one of them are particularly bad people, but the tension is just their marriage is dissolving.
There is a challenge in this movie in that they are hard. You can't get close to these characters initially because they're bickering and they hate each other now,
Right.
at the moment.
Right.
But you can sort of see the roadmap ahead. They're gonna have
Yeah.
to reconnect in order to survive the night.
Right. And Frank Whaley, who plays the hotel proprietor, also the snuff film enthusiast, he turns in, I think, a really great and pretty sort of understated, sort of villainous presence.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously ratchets it up towards the latter part of the film, but as the couple slowly discovers all these weird pieces and parts, this doesn't make sense. Why is there a trapdoor in the bathroom? Why is this that? Why is there these horrible stains all over the floor? They too, Liz, like you had just described, they end up sleeping with all of their clothes on above but the the tension of this film is Hitchcockian, and there are so many great twists and turns. I too completely slept on this because it looked like I've described these as, in the past, as sort of like a hot topic kind of horror movie from the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and I was just like, even though it had Luke Wilson and some degree of credibility, I sort of stayed away from it. Initially, they had cast Sarah Jessica Parker in the role, which I thought would have been interesting because she's
Kate Beckinsale was great.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too. The thing I thought was pretty fascinating, which again, this is like one of these sort of old timey hype machine things that they did to market the film, was they set up a advertising strategy with a toll free phone number where you could call. And when you called, you heard the voice of Frank Whaley, the proprietor of the hotel, and you had it informs callers about slashing their prices and the killer deals that they have at this hotel.
What year did this come out?
2007.
That feels right.
2007. Yeah. It's I went into it with super low expectations. I walked away very excited by it, and I think it's probably a 4+ star movie because I think it's just really well done and really exciting. I have not seen. There is a Vacancy Part 2. Have not seen it, but
it's a prequel, and so it's like,
yeah, I would watch it. I will watch it.
I don't
and get back to you.
It doesn't have any. Well, there's none of the starring cast from Vacancy 1 is in Vacancy 2,
even though they, spoiler alert, could be.
They could, yeah. Some of these characters could come back.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I think there were some the moments that sort of have you that you can identify with are, hey, stop banging on we're making so much noise in the next room over.
Right.
And then it is the skeevy. This was that room kind of looked like the Mississippi Vicksburg hotel that I stayed in, and that is your deep fear, is like, what did I get myself into? Is this going to be? Is there some sort of a murder ring tied to this? And maybe that's classist.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I've noticed is that a lot of these places have the yellow kind of arrow sign.
Right.
It's like a hotel, and it has that those fantastic motor drive-ins where they all have an arrow that points to the hotel.
That's right.
Here. It's like, it's the only thing for hundreds of miles. It feels like you're out in the Sierras.
Yep.
Or I don't know where. Some place it looks like remote
yeah, I think it was Northern California.
So, anyways,
yeah,
totally worth a watch. I'd probably give it 3.5.
Okay.
I think it's a very simple story. It's well executed. It's creepy.
Yeah.
And I think you eventually bond with the married couple. You kind of have to, or you lose interest, because they do go.
Film guy.
Yeah.
You don't want to bond with Frank Whaley.
No.
He's a creep in this.
He was creepy from. It's like, as soon as they open the door, it's like, can you maybe you should sleep in your car.
Right.
Interesting choice.
It's probably cleaner.
Yeah. All right, Liz.
Okay. My second film was on Robert's top 10 of 2020 list.
Ooh.
And this is Cadaver.
Oh.
You can find it on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it's a Norwegian film written and directed by Jaren Herdal. And this is a post-apocalyptic film where, in a Norwegian city, Lenora, Jacob, and their daughter Alice are holed up in their apartment after a nuclear disaster. There's no electricity, no work, no food, and no hope. While everybody's struggling to survive, they hear on the streets like the ringing of a bell, and it is kind of like a covered wagon with a guy saying, "Come up to the hotel to see a play." So there's a theater company that's putting on a play, and if you get tickets to this play, you get a meal. So they're like, well, the wife Lenora had been an actress, a Shakespearean actress, and they're starving, so she takes whatever money they have left to buy tickets to go up to this hotel. And as they get there, the hotel, everybody's in this grand dining room, and the visitors are handed masks, and they're supposed to wear the masks because it is an interactive play. So ticket holders are wearing masks, and anybody who's not wearing a mask is an actor, and you can choose to follow who you want throughout the hotel.
Oh,
So
cool.
this is kind of like that Sleep No More thing in New York. So this is not the most original idea, but it's still cool to look at and fun to watch because, of course, as they divide up, follow different actors, you're going to realize that they might not be as far removed as just spectators. They may be becoming part of the play, and what the heck were they eating?
Ooh. Dun, dun,
So-
dun.
Dun, dun, dun. But it's really cool. It looks really good, and it's a fun one.
This was last year?
I think it 2020.
Oh, 20.
So
Okay.
I think the reason it was a top movie of 2020 was because something weird happened in 2020 that stopped movies from coming out for a while.
That's
So
right.
the choices were limited, but this is good. I'd give this a solid 3.5 stars.
Okay.
So definitely worth a watch. It's Cadaver, spelled with a K, because that's the Norwegian way of spelling it.
Right.
And,
Cadaver.
it is on YouTube. Not YouTube. Excuse me. Netflix. So
Cool.
worth a watch.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to check it out.
Yeah, that sounds
yeah.
fascinating.
The reviews.
Robert had talked about it, and I never watched it, but I was like, I remember having it in my queue and seeing that it was a hotel, and I was like, well, this is the perfect time.
Yep.
So
The reviews are a little lacking on IMDb though.
Hey, get on
Interesting.
it. We should make
Like
sure that
by
Robert posts the.
quantity.
Yeah. Oh no.
Mm.
People's frustrations with the film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay, it's not super duper original, which is what Robert said
Oh,
in
okay.
his.
Mhm.
But it's good. It looks real good.
All right.
It's worth
All right.
Eric, what is next?
Well, I'm going with a 2003 movie starring John Cusack,
Oh.
but it's not that. It's not
Oh.
1408.
Oh.
Not?
Oh.
Oh, it's,
Are we going to
I
have
know
another
what it
collision?
is.
It's
Oh, no.
No, but close.
Identity.
I was gonna pick it. Identity.
Oh.
This is the. What's that?
I love this
Yeah.
movie.
This is the modern adaptation of the classic Agatha Christie 10 Little Indians, which
Mm.
was also a movie from the Golden Age, which
Mhm.
was one of the great murder mysteries from the first half of the century. But this is set in an isolated Nevada motel during a thunderstorm, a dark and stormy night indeed. An important side plot, which is actually the main plot.
Uh-huh.
There's a convict on the verge of execution, and he's being reviewed for a sanity plea by the district attorney in Carson City. But 11 travelers are stranded together as this dark and stormy night cuts off passages in any direction. A woman is badly hurt from being struck by a limousine driven by Ed, John Cusack,
Uh-huh.
which was the end result of a number of other incidents created by the other guests, and that's sort of played out in a very clever fashion in these kind of like stop. There's these pause elements,
Yeah.
and then they go back, and then they get different perspectives, and you realize these things are all linked. Which was one. Okay, something weird is going on here. The coincidences are rather alarming, but none of the characters are aware of the connections that the audience is aware of.
Right.
Okay. And among the group are a cop, Ray Liotta, his criminal
Rest in
charge,
peace, Ray Liotta.
Jake Busey, a whore, Amanda Peet, a pair of mismatched newlyweds, the shifty motel manager and aging movie star, Rebecca De Mornay.
Wow,
making
what
return.
a great cast.
A
Yeah.
quiet family man, John C. McGinley.
Oh yeah, yeah,
His wife was injured, and her son.
Mhm.
And as was true with the 10 Little Indians, these people start dying grisly deaths one by one and are assigned numbers, and like with
Ooh.
motel
Yeah.
tags. It appears that a murderer is amongst them. Clearly, one of them is an overt murderer.
Right.
But when he gets off, it's like, whoa, okay, what's going on? So this is a terrific mystery thriller worthy of the 10 Little Indians badge.
Okay.
I was a bit put off at first by the arch and one-note tendencies of the characters in the film,
Sure.
but then it all becomes clear as to why they're caricatures.
Yeah.
The big twist was always hinted at, but when the reveal comes, it's a doozy.
Ooh.
I think I think one of the key things here is the performance of Pruitt Taylor Vance, who you might recognize. He's a heavyset bald guy with amazing eye acting.
Okay.
His eyes are darting all over the place, and he plays the convict being reviewed.
This is the first time on the Scariest Things podcast where we've talked about eye acting.
Yeah.
I
But Cusack,
First time ever.
Yep. Cusack's a terrific lead.
Yeah.
And he's the only one who seems to have a lot of depth, but that also sort of gets explained in this movie. It's really cool. The motel is a terrific backdrop, and it's the island in a storm. 10 Little Indians was on an island before,
Right.
that they.
And this is shot in Nevada. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what the story. I think it's probably shot in L.A.
Okay.
But the story it's they all converge in a motel, kind of like my Vicksburg experience.
Yeah.
Kind of skeevy.
I think I've seen this, but I'm not sure if I have now.
Yeah.
I kind of need to go back.
You'd
It's
remember
a
it because
pretty good twist.
there are the fun. The best part is when all of a sudden the surviving characters go, "Wait a minute!" They connect the dots. There's a whole bunch of weird things that are connecting the dots. It's like this can't be a coincidence, and then, but they're all totally flummoxed. And, but this is a great pot boiler. Always interesting. Even if at first you kind of go, geez, these people are just like they're really screamy, or they're one note, but they're one note for a reason.
Okay. All right. Sticking with the king of motel horror, John Cusack, I am talking about a film called 1408. This is from 2007, based on the Stephen King short story of the same name. This largely just involves John Cusack and a little Samuel L. Jackson. This is a film I think that was bagged on pretty heavily. I stayed away from it.
Oh, you did?
I stayed away from it when it first came out in 2007. And then when I watched it, I was like, I don't understand what the gripe is, because I think it's a pretty goddamn good movie.
I thought it was great.
It's great. It's a great premise. I mean, obviously, Stephen King source material is wonderful, but it involves Mike Enslin, who's played by John Cusack. He's an author who investigates haunted hotels, haunted houses, and then he writes about them. He puts them together in sort of a paranormal travelogue.
He's a debunker.
Yeah. And he claims he has never experienced any bizarre or frightful events in his travels.
Yeah.
Even though he continues to go out and write these books and he's very successful with said books. He learns, he gets hipped to the fact that there is a room number 1408 in a New York hotel that is the most haunted room there ever once was. And he goes there and convinces Samuel L. Jackson, who's the proprietor of the hotel, to please let him stay in the room, even though Samuel Jackson refuses over and over and over to let him stay in the film. He does. After that, everything goes off the rails very early on in the film, and the frights are real. The jump scares are shocking. There are many crazy and strange and ghoulish happenings that twist Mike Enslin's brain around. And then, of course, in classic sort of Stephen King fashion, it ties back to a very emotionally driven family story, which is, in this case, not all that bad and pretty darn solid. The thing that's interesting, which I didn't realize when I was watching it, because I watched it on Tubi. Apparently, the DVD has 4 different endings to the film. So they actually shot 3 alternative endings. So I haven't seen any of the 3.
Is there a director's cut out there that shows?
Yeah, you can get a
There's
DVD.
gotta be.
Yeah, the DVD sort of it has them all, and apparently the whole idea behind this was based on Stephen King's notion that the story was originally intended to be very ambiguous, and so none of the endings match up with the Stephen King short story. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle described it as one of the good Stephen King adaptations, one that maintains its author's sly sense of humor, satiric view of human nature, and a more genuinely scary movie than most horror films. Yeah, I thought it was legitimately scary. John Cusack, the king of hotel horror,
Apparently so, yes.
turned in a great performance. Samuel Jackson, of course, as always, was great.
Yep.
I don't know why people bagged on this film because I thought it was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think I brought this up. I forget for which podcast, but yeah, 1408. What again? It sort of fell into some other things like The Ninth Gate.
Yeah,
you know, and maybe it's because I'm not used to seeing big stars in
Right.
horror movies,
Right.
And I always get a little bit dubious because you're expecting the up and comers to do it,
Yeah.
unless you know sort of in advance that they're part there, unless you're the you know, unless you were an Anthony Perkins or someone who,
Sure.
who became famous through the horror genre. But when you got Cusack crossing over, I was like, maybe not, but it was great.
Yeah. John Cusack, if you are listening to the podcast, we would love to have you on to talk about clearly your burgeoning horror career.
Yeah.
Please, John.
Although remember
Please, John
that
Cusack.
burgeoning career was about a decade ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. He's still at it, I think.
Liz,
I don't know.
Your last
All
one.
right. My final pick is another one that I got turned on to by our own Robert Zilbauer.
Oh my
Hey.
gosh.
And of this film, he said, whether you're in the mood for some crazy, what could possibly happen next fun, or you just want to freak out your holiday party guests when the murders start happening during your ambient fireplace background video, Yule Log is your go-to film.
What?
Oh,
So-
right.
Yule Log. Okay.
Okay. Yule Log.
Oh, that's
This
right.
is
Yeah.
the Adult Swim Yule Log,
Right.
aka The Fireplace. This is a movie that came on, I guess, Comedy Central, like behind a Rick and Morty episode, but it is now been released on HBO Max. It is a 90-minute, completely bonkers, like David Lynchian style film made at a double booked Airbnb. So I don't even know how to summarize this film. So that's kind of it. I'm gonna read pretty much Robert's review, and this is made by Casper Kelly, who Robert says is the mad genius behind the horror comedy short Too Many Cooks. He's also from Ricky and Morty and Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which are Comedy Central shows. And it starts to introduce its characters. So we have Zoe and her boyfriend Alex, who are the ones who rent the cabin. He is a filmmaker who makes Yule Log films. So he's got his camera set up. That's why the camera is always on, filming their fireplace. They're there for a romantic weekend. And then a group of three comes and they're like, no, but this is our cabin. Oops. Instead of let's call and straighten this out, they just start to kind of hang out together and party. And that is when everything goes off the rails. And not just off the rails. Robert says Casper Kelly takes it so far off the rails you can't even see the rails from where we end up. And so unpredictability is the name of the game in absurdist cinema, and Yule Log does not disappoint. So I will promise you, it is scary. It is very gory. It is capital H horror. And it's probably one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, but it does have a structure and an actual story. So it's not like a completely experimental film. So if you have HBO Max, settle down in front of the Yule Log fire for 90 minutes and experience this total weirdness. Soon to be a Christmas tradition, I'm sure.
Yule
log.
log.
Yes.
All right, Eric, what is your last film of the night?
Well, I have to go to a backup because you and I collided on Vacancy, but I'm
Yeah.
going to bring up the Ty West favorite, The Innkeepers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
And this is this also would have fit in our previous episode 162, Slow Burn.
We talked about it in episode 4.
So would the rental.
Ghost horror.
Yeah. So this is during the final
And
days
for
of the
workplace horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. True. So stars Sarah Paxton, Pat Healy, and Kelly McGillis.
Mm-hmm.
Making a fun cameo in this, or a little bit more than a cameo, a supporting role.
Yep.
But there's there's a Connecticut hotel called the Yankee Peddler Inn, and it's largely vacant, where Kelly McGillis's character is the only one who's holed up there, and she has a specific reason to be held up there. But Claire and Luke are the two employees left to manage the hotel in its final few days, and they know that there's a reputation that, and they even have a website set up that describes the hauntings of the.
Yeah, they're like amateur ghost hunters,
and
who may or may not believe in ghosts.
Right, but they're having a kick out of it because they're bored employees. There's not a whole lot else to do because the rooms don't need that much attention because there's not a whole lot of people. There's also a guy up on the top floor who's been there for a while, and he keeps to himself. But they start the ghosts of the Yankee Peddler they start finding out some, at first it's a whim, and then they start getting into it, and they're tracking it around. It is a classic slow build ghost story.
Oh, absolutely.
But so Kelly McGillis is the woman who has all the secrets. And once they get the update from her, then all of a sudden they realize that maybe this isn't the best idea, but there's a lot of getting trapped in the basement, but they're still fascinated. They want to, because they're just, once you get in on it, you want to check it out. And it reminds me of, we just did our spooky times with the Scariest Things. There's a game called Phasmophobia, which I played.
Oh, right.
And they're doing all the Phasmophobia stuff.
Right.
Where you're walking around, it's like, with the monitors and trying to see if they're getting anything, and turn out the lights and sit in and then and ask questions in the darkness. No, it is a Ty West great script.
And I think the thing that really holds this together is the relationship between the two main characters.
Yeah.
They really pull this thing off, and they really drag you into their world, their nervousness, their sort of malaise as hotel workers.
Because Claire and Luke are not romantic partners.
No,
they're just
not at all.
They're kind of friends, but they're not. But they're more fascinated with the hauntings, and that you're right. I think it's a kind of a unique kind of a male-female relationship, which is I thought it was, you're right, played on point, and it was. Anyways, go check this out. It's one of those sort of. I didn't make much of a stir, and actually a lot of Ty West. You could say, the horror community knows about it. So you, our friends on the horror community, make sure that you've checked this one out. It is part of the proud legacy of Mr. West, and worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, the last film of the night is a film that was called, alternative titles included Death Trap, Starlight Slaughter, Horror Hotel, but the great Tobe Hooper finally landed on Eaten Alive.
Almost picked that one.
Eaten Alive.
There you go.
This is cram-packed with just an amazing group of actors, including Robert Englund and Carolyn Jones, who was the original Morticia Addams. This is about as bonkers a film as you will ever see, but it essentially involves Neville Brand, who plays a psychotic hotel proprietor in rural East Texas who feeds those who have upset him to a large crocodile that lives in a swamp right next to the hotel.
Yes.
Judd is the proprietor, and he is has total dementia, is very sexually frustrated, and is as creepy a hotel proprietor as you will ever see. Allegedly, Kim Hankel, who was also Tobe Hooper's co-writer in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, said the plot was loosely based on the story of Joe Ball, who apparently in the 1930s, similar kind of situation, he owned a bar with a live alligator attraction in Elmendorf, Texas. And during that time, he murdered several women, and legend has it that he would dump the women's bodies into the pond, and the gators would chomp them up.
Speaking of Ty West,
Yeah.
with Pearl and X, and
Right.
that I think there's some influences there.
Oh my God, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the film is all shot on a set, which has this kind of, it creates this really weird sort of, it's not shot on a location, it's all shot on a set, and so it creates this really sort of dreamy like quality, and the lighting is really weird, and the color is really weird, all taken together. It's a very different. If people say, "Oh yeah, it's basically the Texas Chainsaw Massacre," no, it's very, very different.
Right.
Very different feel, very different aesthetic in total. It did in 1982. Great Britain put it on their video nasties list, and it was prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act of 1959.
So, Chris Cleveland, you can actually watch this now.
Yes, you can watch it now. You can watch Eaten Alive now. If you are a fan of hillbillies, if you're a fan of hotels, if you're a fan of hillbilly horror hotels, and you're a fan of Tobe Hooper, if you're a fan of Texas Chainsaw,
If you're a fan of monster alligator movies,
monster alligator movies, yeah, this
Bunch of those.
has got it all, and it's got a lot of pre-version, courtesy of Robert Englund.
I never even heard of this movie.
Robert
Yeah.
Englund is a very, 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 very obviously pre-Freddy Krueger, very young Robert Englund, very young. I mean, he must have been in his early 20s. I'm gonna guess,
because he was also in Galaxy of Terror at around this time. That
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
1980. But
Yeah.
but this was 78,
76.
76. Yeah, okay.
76. So he did this like Tobe Hooper put this out like hot on the heels of Texas Chainsaw. It is an absolutely bonkers film, and a guy named Ken Hankey, who did the official Splatter Movie Guide, which I'm going to go out and buy now because I loved his description. He reappraised the film as a misunderstood masterpiece that captured the otherworldly madness of the death of amateur night in Dixie brand of the American dream.
Nice.
Yeah, go see Eaten Alive if you haven't seen it yet. Don't sleep on it. It is a Tobe Hooper
Is
masterpiece.
this one easy to find?
Oh, yeah,
It is
totally
super easy to
Yeah,
find.
I would do a back-to-back this in Motel Hell.
Oh yeah, for
Oh,
sure,
I love
for
it.
sure.
Because I mean, these are grindhouse hotel
Oh, yeah, you
horror
can watch
classics.
it on Peacock or Tubi, our favorite.
Yeah.
Tubi.
Good job, Tubi. If you want to be a sponsor, Tubi, you and
Seriously.
the
I love
Mississippi Tourism Council can both be sponsors
Right,
of
this
the
is-
Scariest
this would
Things
be
podcast.
The Texas. This is Texas, right? But
This is all Texas,
This
yeah.
is swampy Texas.
Swampy
This is-
Texas, yeah. It's East Texas.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why they had to shoot it inside of a studio, because it is very difficult to shoot in a swamp.
Right.
So with that, just a few other classics that bear mentioning, because we've talked about them recently enough that we didn't need to belabor it. But one of my recent favorites, Superhost, which came out that I saw for Popcorn Frights, was their film of the year for that.
Mhm.
Which was great. The Night, which was my top film from 2020,
Right.
which is a Persian
Oh, right.
American film
Yeah,
about
yeah,
a haunted hotel. Really loved that one. Barbarian last
Mhm.
year was
Airbnb
Airbnb.
mishap. Yeah.
And we talked about
Don't Airbnb
Motel
in
Hell.
Detroit.
And you got to go back to the beginning and go to Psycho,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So this is I think
Or or the most famous hotel of all time, the
The
Overlook
Overlook
Hotel.
Yeah, The Shining. Well, we
Gonna
talked
say the Haunted Mansion?
We
Yeah.
talked about that. Or Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
For a shout out to Liz.
Uh-huh.
But this is, Mike's right. There's a lot of really fun haunted vacation properties, as
Yep.
I think Liz wanted to refer to it.
Yep.
And we got a good closeout tagline, Mike.
Yes, we do. This is a tagline from the 2000s. Gosh, what year did 1408 come out? Now I don't even know. This 1408 came out in.
Oh, you killed the tagline.
Sorry,
Yeah.
2000. It was 2000. It was 2007.
Just give it to us.
Yes, 1408, 2007. The tagline is, "The Dolphin Hotel invites you to stay in any of its stunning rooms, except one."
Nice.
What number is that one?